All right, everybody. So, our first review of the day is going to be for the film Challengers. This is Luca Guadagnino there. This is his film here. This is starring Zendaya. It is a film about tennis players here, kind of a love triangle in a sense, a very crazy, wild love triangle. It all revolves around this girl, it's Zendaya, who plays a girl named Tisha Duncan, star college tennis player here, really primed to be very, very successful, be a superstar. And actually, Zendaya did actually shadow real tennis players for about 5
Mm.
plus months there to get the skills and actually the motions down there being one. But kind of tragedy strikes there. You know, she ends up having an on-court injury where her knee goes to California and the other part of the knee goes to New York, and she ends up being out for basically ever. They basically ends her career there. And you know, while that ends her career, she's kind of also has this relationship going on between these two male characters. One played by Mike Faust, who plays Art, and then the other played by Josh O'Connor, who plays Patrick here. And a lot was talked about this trailer, especially for this
Uh-huh.
scene right here in particular. You know, they're sitting on the bed there together of like, you know, what is this movie gonna be? Is it how sexy
Ah,
is it gonna be? Um, how
like
dangerous?
yeah, is this movie just gonna be basically a 50 Shades type movie with, occasional scenes of tennis in between?
Yeah. You know, how you know sexy is this movie kind of gonna happen here? And I would tell you it's not really that much. I mean, there is
Mm.
sex in it, but it's not really, I think, as much as they play it here. I mean, it's still a very sexual film and the
Hmm.
tension there that you have it from all different sides here.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
and this is the thing I think that Luca Guadagnino specializes in with a lot of his films, because a lot of his work, it focuses on sexuality, especially with his first major film, Call Me by Your Name, to Suspiria to an extent. So did Bones
Bones
and
and
All.
all. Yeah.
All of them focus on sexuality, and here it's more about the power dynamic, the power that comes with sexuality, than it is the actual physical act of it.
Yeah. And you know, it's more than just a, you know, who is she gonna pick in the end, or you know what I mean? Is that gonna happen? It's much more interesting than that, I
Mhm.
think, than your simple love triangle. But I'm gonna go around get you guys' thoughts on this. Dusk, what are your thoughts on Challengers here?
Uh, this movie's not too different than a lot of movies this director has made. He's made a lot of combinations of. I think what he likes to do is he likes to play with looking at characters, looking at situations, and then adding bits of eroticism in there,
Mhm.
especially and seeing how either morbid or how pulled back he can be with these characters. This movie has been mostly pushing towards the marketing, at least wise, pushing towards this to be a more sexual movie. That's not necessarily the case. While sex is a motif in this movie, it's really a story about manipulation and
Mm.
control. This is a movie about people who want to win, and none of them are winning.
Mm.
Not really. It's the illusion of victory. They're all different in different challenges in their life. Some in a physical trap, and like literally trapped in life. Some metaphorical, and some a
Mhm.
mix of both, where their choices are just tied, and they it's whatever decision they make, it's screwed. Uh, and I think the main character in this that really both kind of shines, but also represents the theme of it is in Zendaya. She really
Mm.
is able to kind of carry this just really craftiness and manipulation between these two characters, Art and Patrick, who are like just inspiring tennis players, and they both want to be these winners. They both want to. Art
Mhm.
is a fairly skilled tennis player.
Uh-huh.
He's stable, but he may not be the best. But Patrick has a lot of has a lot of passion and a lot of skill. He could be
Uh-huh.
Raw
great,
talent. Yeah.
raw talent.
Yeah, and I was talking about this to an extent, about the dynamic between all three of our lead characters in this, and I kind of saw it as a look at three different kinds of athletes. It's, you have one who had all the talent, all the promise in the world, but their career was cut short due to injury. You have one who has the work ethic and has the drive to do it, but there's just that little bit of that skill that is lacking. the dude that is blessed with natural talent but just coasts off it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you kind of see that here. And Patrick is that character. And we see, and they start off as best friends, Patrick and Art. I mean, childhood best friends. There, and they're kind of coming in. Of course, what ruins sometimes two male childhood best friends is a woman kind of coming in there and messing kind of things up sometimes.
Rule
Literally.
number one, gentlemen, any young gentleman listening to this, if a
Mhm.
woman walks up to you, especially a young, beautiful woman walks up to you and says, "I'm not a homewrecker," she's a homewrecker. Run.
She is 100%.
Man eater.
She
Yeah.
is legitimately a man eater, a homewrecker,
Uh-huh.
someone that level of manipulation. Sinzai does a really good job in this. I think everybody does a solid and good job in this movie.
Everybody here is fantastic. You have 3 fantastic leads. We've already sung the praises of Zendaya countlessly throughout the entire run of the show. Josh O'Connor, though I'm not crazy about The Crown, I really loved his performance on that. And he was also in Peaky Blinders, which I thought he was really good in. And Mike Faced, who I think was robbed of a Best Supporting Actor nomination for West Side Story.
Yeah, very good in that movie. He was. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think everybody does a good job here. I think Dust is right. I mean, Zendaya's building a really nice career, really nice resume, and I think she very much stands out in this movie. She is very much the lead in this movie, and kind of the different dynamics kind of going on between all 3 of them. I don't want to say too much because I want people to go see the movie and go experience it for yourself there. What kind of happens, and the movie also jumps between different time periods. The movie starts off with basically the climax of the movie, which is the big tennis battle. Because of course, any sports movie, you're gonna have the big fight, the big game, the big whatever. So in this, of course, tennis, you're gonna have the big tennis match between 2 characters at the end of this. That's the climax. But in the midst of the climax, it jumps between different times. It goes back 13 years to show when they were in college. Then it fast forwards a couple more years. Then it does, about like in the middle, like an 8-year time frame. So it kind of goes back and forth in time there, which I like to show them at different periods and kind of this long history of them and each other's lives, which I thought was really well done there. I like that. And it made it interesting. And the tennis scenes too are very, very good. I mean, the way they shoot these scenes, it's so intense. The final, especially the final tennis match there, that the way that's done is really, really very good.
Yeah, never in my adult life have I ever given a shit about tennis until I watched this movie.
Yeah.
And especially in the final match, Guadagnino does this interesting thing where it's almost like he puts the camera on the tennis ball and has it go back and forth. And it can be a little jarring because I saw this in IMAX and I was getting a little bit of motion sickness watching it, but it was still intense watching.
Yeah. I saw this in IMAX as well. I will say this movie, good soundtrack in this. This is done by Trent Reznor. But it would come in at the weirdest fucking moments. Like they'd be talking, and then all of a sudden it would be blaring and it'd be loud. I was like, what the fuck? Like in the most, and it's a good soundtrack. I like it, but it's just like it would come in at the weirdest moments. What are you guys' thoughts on that, Dust?
Yeah, Dust, you go ahead.
I love Trent Reznor. I think he's made some incredible music. I'm a big first-person shooter guy. I like playing video games, and Trent Reznor, his sound effects are in almost every old school video game you can think of, especially Doom and many, many others. So I'm always a fan to hear his stuff. This is by far one of the most appropriate soundtracks on occasion I've heard. There's just so many moments where I'm like, why? Who edited this? Who put this music in here? Why would you put it here at this moment in time? It was like I was watching Civil War again, and occasionally it would be playing certain music. I'm like, what? This completely kills the tone. What are you doing? It might as well. You would have been better if no music was playing, if they were just talking, or moments were just sitting with themselves. It actually reminded me of there's an old Mel Gibson movie called Gallipoli, and it's about the Olympics during I think it's World War I or II, just before World War II. And it was an Australian movie. It's very good, but it has a very distinct soundtrack, very synth heavy soundtrack. And it works in that way, but there are some moments even in that movie where the synth soundtrack kind of feels a little off. This one does have moments where when it works it works best when the action's happening when the final tennis match. That's when it absolutely, I think, works. and in a couple of moments when you feel a tense atmosphere. But most of the time, it really just doesn't. It doesn't fit the vibe they're kind of going for here. I think, unfortunately, it was a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, and the music is very electronic, kind of EDM style type music. Well, not really EDM, but very
more like industrial type of house music. If you're a fan of Nine Inch Nails, it's very similar to that. Which Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, both famously members of that band.
Yeah, so they come in to do the music here. Yeah, so that was one thing that was, I think, really off to me in the movie, just like where they place kind of the music here. Yeah, so was this movie kind of from the trailer, basically, you think it was selling you a lie at all? Or
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
It is, while there is a essence to it, it's really not. It's really not at all.
Like you have that one quote, sexiest, one of the sexiest movies of
They need to get out more.
the sexiest movies ever made.
That's a little hyperbolic, but
yeah,
to me it depends on like what your definition of sex in cinema is. It like the actual like physical act of two characters being physical with each other, or is it a little more closer to this? And there's this line that Zendaya has in this movie early when all three characters are getting to know each other about tennis and about how, like she views tennis as not really a game strictly. It's more like a relationship she has with the other party.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. Zendaya is both. While she's the main character of the story, she's also the antagonist. She's genuinely she is, as she says, I am not a homewrecker. She is everything that she says she is. She is an individual who wants pure control and lives vicariously through other people, because after that accident, she can't be the position. If she could, she put her brain inside of another person's body and do it that way. But
if she could, she would put her brain inside of Art.
Yeah.
Reverse Get Out.
Pretty much. And Art, I ended up really liking Art and feeling really sorry for Art.
He's a character who, when he's first introduced, his infatuation with Tashi, it's very endearing until it gets to a point where it just becomes kind of sad.
Yeah, we haven't brought this up. It's not a major spoiler, but the way we're talking about this, eventually she ends up with one of these gentlemen, and we haven't mentioned
it's in the trailer.
Yeah,
that she ends up married to Mike Face.
Right. What's not in the trailer is they have a kid together, who you never see, who Tasha could give two craps about. And it's honestly, it really shows his character. Art is trying to be a father and a competitor and this, and Taisha is really specifically on, I want you to win. Like, stop being a little bitch and win.
It's like she dropped that line and I nearly spat out my drink. It's like, god damn.
Yeah, she doesn't like, she is so singly focused on this, and Art is genuinely just trying to be a decent, honorable person. And against somebody like that, you can't win. But in her attitude, no matter what she does, she can't win. And God, the less we say about Patrick, the better, and where he has ended up. He hasn't exactly kind of won anything. He's kind of in a bad situation. He's still trying. His career's mostly kind of over.
Yeah, he's like that. And I hate to make this comparison, but for anybody who follows the UFC, he's kind of like Diego Sanchez in the last couple years of his career. The guy who is well past his prime, but is still hanging in there in spite of everybody around him saying, you should probably quit.
Honestly, it's almost endearing in a way that you're still willing to put your body on the line, even when it's well past his prime. It's like, but it does feel like it's just like watching a wounded lion fight against stronger lions, but somehow still occasionally winning. You're like, good for you, man. And
But I mean, then you go like, well, I mean, he does come from a lot of money already, so it's like he'll be okay regardless. I mean, he's trying to do this. Like at first, like you feel a little sympathy for him because he can't even check into a hotel because he doesn't have enough money. But then Zendaya's like, "Fuck, you're rich. Like, just fucking be rich. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you don't need to play tennis to make money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
yeah,
you're talented at it.
it's mostly he's not winning in the passion of his soul. He has
Yeah.
physical things, and he doesn't. His pride is getting in the way. He doesn't want to admit that he failed.
Yeah.
It's a movie about everybody's trying to win and nobody's winning.
Yeah.
And I think, and I enjoyed it to a sense. And there were a couple moments where it did drag in some moments, and especially the soundtrack took me out of this. And there were moments where I'm reminded of his other movies like Bones and All, and a couple, and your name, say your name,
Call Me by Your Name.
Call Me by Your Name, thank you, where you do get that little intimate moments here into whatever effed up situation he's putting these characters in because he loves doing it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you guys felt about the ending.
Mm.
I
I felt very conflicted about the ending, and
Yeah.
and the ending of this movie, it reminded me of a movie that we talked about last year that ended up on my best of list, which was Sanctuary. About how I can look at this ending, and even thinking about it now, I kind of have like several different interpretations of what Luca with this ending, what the characters are going through, and how these three stand with each other after the events of this film.
Yeah. I kind of feel a little conflicted on it. Some people are probably gonna really love it, hate it. If some people might not see it as a real conclusion to things. Did any of you think like? Because I don't know anything about tennis. I don't know the rules of tennis. I wish there maybe could have been a little explanation of like what these tennis terms mean. As far like I think I know what match point is. I think, but then I don't know if that happened. And then there were some things. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe they could have had a audience avatar character maybe there that could have explained a little.
Yeah,
Bit.
this movie expects you to have intimate understanding, or at least somewhat intimate understanding. The movie's not interested in telling you anything about it. It's really not. That's actually the point. Actually, the last final shot that ends in this conclusion is made specifically to be in a way where you're not sure how the point went. because how he served it, the way it was hit on that point, and then how they deal with it afterwards could have been a point in either of their court. So the fact it leaves it up in the air, and then the way it's handled after that, I'm going to be honest, it felt like it was on a different movie. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because and that's just it without going into details, it kind of ends on a very, well, folks, thanks for watching my movie.
Yeah. Some people could see it as kind of
it's kind of a cop out.
Yeah, yeah, and I kind of feel that to a certain extent. That this is a movie, this is an ending that I think Guadagnino wants to leave ambiguous about it wants to leave it up to audience interpretation, but it feels like in this ending, it kind of the movie just cuts off.
Yeah. But I mean, I could maybe, I mean, depending on how the rest of the year shakes out, I could maybe see Zendaya maybe getting some recognition. I mean, the way she kind of does things in here of like you never know her true allegiance, you never know exactly, where she's gonna fall.
She wants to win. That's her true allegiance.
I mean, yeah, she wants to win. Definitely,
she doesn't care who she deals. She's actually very simple. She's an extremely simple character if you understand her as someone who will do whatever it takes to whatever situation to win. And she really loves tennis because it's intimate knowledge of another individual.
Yeah, that's true. I think
simple.
I think that I mean, tennis is what she loves above all else.
It's the only thing she loves.
It's what she loves is
everything else is a convenience to get to her to win and to her one true love, which is tennis, the sport in itself. She could give a crap about her daughter. She could give a crap about her husband. She could give a crap about anything. That's all in the way to get her to what she wants.
Yeah, because you see, she's
and she plays it fantastically.
Empire. Yeah, and she's helped build this empire.
Basically, yes, she's literally
empire. Yeah,
Art would have been all right. He actually would have been a fairly okay tennis professional, and it was done very well, decent for himself. But she built she helped and like put the fire under him and be like and promoted him and got him to this position.
Yeah,
And
there's so much that can be inferred that she basically forced him into this position
oh
because
yeah,
when we meet Art in this movie, he's looking for the way out. He's like ready to
Yes, he is.
retire. He just wants to get his comfortable ass commentating job.
He's like,
He
I want to
wants
eat a
to live off the
cheeseburger.
foundation.
I want to eat food.
I want to eat a fucking French fry.
Yeah.
And she's like, too bad, win.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I marry a little bitch?
Exactly.
So what's you guys' final thoughts, ratings for challengers?
Oof.
This is hard.
For, actual dialogue from the movie.
Yes, it was.
For me, something I like about Luca Guadagnino is how much he is fascinated by sexuality and how much that influences behavior and all the different patterns that manifest with that. And with this movie, he's interested in the power dynamic that comes with the sexuality, especially in the lens of sport, which is inherently very competitive, which is at its core based on power, especially in something like tennis. And with this movie, I felt so fascinated by what he was going for with this very toxic dynamic between these three people and all of the little back and forth in the games that they are playing with each other. And the performances by Zendaya, who is fantastic as always, Mike Faist, who is incredible, so is Josh O'Connor, and how much your perception of all three of these characters changes throughout the film, how much the jumping around through time in this narrative, how much it does inform characters' actions. And I'd be very curious to rewatch this knowing everything I already know about this with all that in mind. But like you guys, I kind of had the same problem where the score was great and it is a fantastic score, but it would always come in and kind of overpower the dialogue in that way that, okay, I really want to get sucked into these performances by these actors, but the score is really distracting.
Yeah.
And
So
for those issues, I gotta give this is like a high tune-in bordering on peak. It's like much like art in this movie is just that one little bit of edge keeping it away from peak.
Okay. Dusk, what about you?
Yeah, I think I would give this a solid tune in. I think it's very, when it's good, really good. And but there are little moments. The soundtrack is great on its own, but in this movie, it kind of had the wrong timing in the wrong areas, and that does change the entire mood. It also feels like, well, as much as I thought it was good, them going back and forth and seeing a little bit of their past as the movie moves forward, I felt that did take away some of it. And I would have more preferred a more consistent story if they were trying to set this up. I understand why he did that, but it did kind of get a little muddled and dragged a bit when you do that. I think all the performances were very strong overall, though, and the story is interesting. It's probably one of his more, I'm going to be completely honest, this is probably the director's one of his more understandable stories, or at least more digestible for most people.
Yeah.
If you compare a lot of his other catalog, it's like Bones and All. You're like, what? A story about people a love story about people who eat people?
Yeah, this is definitely Guadagnino's most accessible movie.
Yeah. So with all that said, and and especially the way it ended and the way it just kind of just stops, and that might be what worked for some people. It didn't quite work for me. I didn't hate it because of that, but I did go, wait, that's it. It doesn't destroy the beginning, but it does leave a like, where's the rest of the rest 10 minutes or 5 minutes? Give me a little bit more. I need to kind of wrap this up at least a little bit. But
and this movie's 2 hours. Did you think it was too long?
I think there's some things they could have cut here and there, but I think you could have cut this down to you could have cut this down to an hour and a half. maybe an hour and 40.
Damn, hour and a half, hour for damn.
Damn.
I would be an hour and 40. There's some scenes that you could have cut, but to get a more consistent flow to the narrative events, you asked me what you could cut. I'm saying you could cut that out. Would it make a better movie? I'm not so sure, but I think in flow you could have gotten a little bit closer to what you were going for. I understood why his scenes were there, and I thought they were all good. But I think because of all the small issues I have, I think it's still a solid movie. You should still check it out. I'm giving it definitely a solid to upper tune in to check it out. But that's why I wouldn't put it in the peak. It just doesn't quite meet. It had the moments. It was almost there, but it didn't quite reach it.
Okay. I'm about at a tune in, little kind of strong tune in there.
Yeah.
With it, I like the performances in here. I think the movie's shot very well. Like I said, the
Mhm.
tennis scenes are very good, very well shot. I think
There's
those
some
are really.
scenes that are absolutely gorgeous from a cinematography point of view.
Oh yeah. Now, if I don't know if you really play tennis, of how those scenes look to you. You know what I mean? I
I
get
used to when I was younger.
used to when you were younger. Okay, so you got the tennis pro over here. Okay, so yeah.
But
So oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, it's but I did notice small things here and there. I'm like, oh, he's coming back to me. Yeah, that's that, and that's all this. But
Yeah.
it's clearly made by somebody who's very passionate about the sport and did their research for it.
Yeah. And I think Guadagnino, I mean, with his other films, I've seen Suspiria. I very much like Suspiria. I've
Mhm.
seen Bows and All. I haven't seen Call Me by Your Name. I've only seen bits and pieces of it. I haven't seen the full thing there, but very interested in dynamics and relationships and sexual things and how those things play out. And I think you see that very much here in this film. And just to see where things kind of end up and go, I think is very interesting to see this kind of done. And I don't think it's, I mean, maybe it could be seen as very soap opera like, but I think soap opera done in a more high art type of way, I think maybe. So yeah, for that, I give it a 10. And I do have the issue, as we mentioned before, about Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross there coming in with that score of just like, yeah, it could sometimes be just in the most oddest of places. Like, I don't know who placed it there. It's like they're just sitting, they're eating Cocoa Puffs. Why are you putting the score right here? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, there are certain scenes where the score jumps in, but it's scenes where characters are having an argument, and I can kind of see a little bit of the intention there. It's just I think the sound mixing could have been okay. Put the dialogue a little bit more prominently.
yeah. So you could add that. So yeah, just a tune in for me. I like it. Good movie. Yeah. So, Nick kind of gave it a high tune in, bordering on peak. Dust was at a kind of a strong tune in there. I was also at a good tune in there with this film. So that was our review of Challenger.